Welcome to my PowerPoint or Google slide in this case about Tome of Cryomancy. This is gonna be the first video I make out of a probably long series of video where I make PowerPoint about Age of Wonder 4 because I keep going on and on about how I think about some things, and then I realize it's probably easier if I just go by tomes and maybe some other things later on and keep the thing I want to talk about limited so I don't ramble a lot. Um, the reason why I pick Tome of Cryomancy first is because I'm currently playing in a multiplayer group, and so this series is probably gonna be focused more on multiplayer. Although I feel like if you play single player, these fundamentals does not change in single player. It just straight up does not. Our our multiplayer group has a very set way of play, so it might be different depending on what group you play with. Keep that in mind. While the player is Hashinshin, he's making videos on tomes depending on the entire affinity. I want to make tomes depending on tiers. So he also goes a little bit less in depth about each individual tome, and I want to go more in depth into individual tomes. So I think this will be good complement knowledge to his video. I'm by no means actually that knowledgeable of the game, but I think it's fun to share, and I also think um, even if you're not that great, you're still probably gonna be a better than another player. So it's never a bad idea to share your opinion. Be civil about discussion, and everybody can have a good time. So, anyways, let's get into it. So, what is Tome of Cryomancy? It is considered by some, a lot, most players as the best tier one tome. I don't have data, but from what I'm seeing, a lot of players generally consider this to be the best first pick tome. Perhaps there are some arguments there are other best tier one tome technically, but in general, this is considered one of the best tier one tome. It provides everything a tome that can possibly provide except the building. So in Age of Wonder 4, tome are research, basically text, right? They can provide units, they can provide building, they can provide improvements, they can provide spells, they can provide enchantment, which is generally the five big category I consider. However, this is the lack of building is not really a weakness. I see people think it is. Hashinshin, when in his nature video, actually consider it a weakness. I disagree. Because building are kind of a hit or miss in Age of Wonder 4, unlike games like Civ. I don't think buildings are that great in Civ as well, but we'll get to it if I make Civ videos. In general, there are only a few resources you actually have to focus in your cities, and a lot of the time you get them from either improvements or you don't get them because they're not meaningful enough, or they don't pay. There's a big tax or gold, big tax in production or gold that you have to pay that you're not gonna get if you build them. Tier 1 tomes can be picked before game start, same as your cultural trait, ruler, and racial traits. This is extremely important to why some people consider Cryomancy is the best, because I believe most people, when they make that claim, they actually meant that it's actually the best tier 1 tome to be picked before game start, because it's a very generalist tome that does everything, and we'll get to it, but it kind of does everything very intuitively. Tier 1 tomes, along with tier 2 tomes, also are the list of tomes that have no prerequisite to choose, so they don't have any affinity requirements. They don't have any well, the only requirements they have for tier 2 is that you need to pick two tier 1, and for tier 1 you don't have to pick any tome, you can always pick tier 1, which actually makes tier 1 quite unique. Therefore kind of hard to evaluate, but I think still like Cryomancy is a very helpful tome to be picked even on as your second tier 1. Also, there are reasons to not pick Cryomancy on as your second tome, because there is another tier 1 tome that perform Cryomancy's job better. Um, with that being said, Tome of Cryomancy is really good, and we'll get into it. So first, let's talk about spells. Spells are actions you can take that spend mana and casting point. So Tome of Cryomancy provides two spells. The first is Blizzard. All units in target enemy army sustain 20 frost damage and suffer 3 status resistance for one world map turn. Um, just as a side note, in our group, when we do PvP battles, we allow overworld spells to be casted, we ask if they want to cast any spell before we fight out the battle. So keep in mind, if you don't have that rule on, Blizzard might be useless because people just immediately sprint it down and auto resolve your stacks. Um, which is kind of an asshole to do, but sometimes they do it. Sometimes they have other rules that kind of keep it balanced, so it's not big of a deal. The second is Ice Coffins. This is a in combat spell. It is target enemy, a single enemy, sustain 10 frost damage, and has a base 90% chance of becoming frozen. If unsuccessful, it inflicts slow. Slow is, I believe, lower movement and one less retaliation stack. Not stack, retaliation attack. So Tome of Cryomancy provides both over map spell and in combat spells. Both of which are honestly amazing. Now Ice Coffin does kind of fall off because it's kind of, if you think about it in terms of action economy, right? You're using 0 of your unit to disable 1 of their unit. However, as soon as debuff removal or enemy just have debuff removal spell or enemy have debuff removal unit come online, then you're not really going for 0 versus 1. You're kind of going for 0 versus 1, but if they have like a combat spell that they can cast and remove it, it's 0 versus 0. If they have a worse unit that they don't care, like a support unit that just remove Ice Coffin on its like off turn, then it's a 0 versus 0. So it does kind of falls off pretty quickly. Blizzard, however, again, with the rule set we play, never really falls off. Even if you play with a rule set where you are not guaranteed to cast your over map combat spells, Blizzard is still great because they allow you to do some really. It allows you to win auto resolve you're normally not supposed to win. It's basically how it is. 20 frost damage and 3 status resistance shred is huge for the majority of the game against any opponent, including AI, including auto resolves. So, if you don't know, multiplayer also need to focus on auto resolve because we're not gonna take every single battle as manual because there's gonna be like 6-7 players, and if we all do that, then the game is just gonna be like incredibly slow, like incredibly slow. So we usually allow one manual combat where you get to control the army against AI entire game for every player. Which we think is a good middle ground. So Blizzard allow you to win auto resolves when the AI is being really down. So that's basically the gist of it. The second part is enchantments. I think enchantments in general has kind of been overrated. If I'm being honest. They are definitely good. They're helpful, but not all enchantments are made the same, and I think they are kind of overvalued. I'll get to it maybe if I go into a tome where I think it's a bit more noob trap about enchantments. However, this is not gonna be one of the tome. Tome of Cryomancy, spoiler alert, basically has no noob trap. You can pick this as a noob, as a high level player, as someone who's trying to learn the game and kind of already figure things out, like me. Like in the middle ground. You can pick Cryomancy as anyone. It doesn't matter. Archers are amazing in multiplayer, but Frost Arrows synergize with Frost Blades and slow. So here, if you look at it here, Frost Arrows is make base physical range attack of enchanted unit gain plus 2 frost damage, minus 1 physical damage, so 1 damage on net, and a base 60% chance of inflicting slowed. Affecting range unit and skirmisher unit. So a good thing about this is that it also affects skirmisher unit, which means skirmisher unit are actually good. They're basically kind of just better range unit. There are options. But yeah. It combos really well within itself. This combos really well with Frostblade. Frostblade is unironically one of the strongest tier 1 enchantment. It exchanges 2 points of easily mitigate damage in physical damage for 4 points of the least resisted. One of the least resisted. I wouldn't call it actually the least resisted, but one of the least resisted damage type, which is frost damage. This affects all your melee unit. And skirmishers. Skirmishers can both melee and range. So already you're doing a really good trade-off here to boost your flat damage, and then you get a 20% damage against frozen or slowed units. Spoiler: Cryomancy is really good at generating frozen and slowed enemies for you to hit. Frost Arrow does that. Both Blizzard and Coffin spell, Blizzard doesn't directly make them frozen or slow, but the increase the 3 status resist shred basically give you around 27%, I would say, higher chance of inflicting those debuffs on the enemy, and Ice Coffin just straight up does it. So yeah, this is pretty good. As we'll see now, the Tome of Cryomancy also have units that can generate those debuffs. So this is draft units. Draft units are kind of think about it like your Civ unit, where you have to build it in a city. Now, in Age of Wonder 4, a good thing, a very important thing, I wouldn't call it. It wouldn't really be a good thing, but I think it's a better system. Is that units cost draft and gold. Draft are basically production for your units, but they only apply to your units. They are one of the most important stat, again, in my opinion. Uh, because it just it makes you build unit faster. Anyways, so this is a tier two battle mage unit. Battle mage units are generally squishy units that do elemental damage. They are battle mage is actually the physical damage. They also provide a bit of utility, and they're typically, again, very squishy. So it requires Town Hall level 2 to build because it's a tier 2 unit. Um, Basically means your city has to be at least your city has to build a town hall level 2. I don't remember when you unlock it, but you should build town halls always boosted. So you get a boost at population 5. So basically you don't really build these units until you get population 5 in your city. You literally cannot because you require town hall level 2 to build. These units are really squishy. However, there are a few things going on for them. Going for them. So it actually helps a lot with auto resolves. So there's squishy range unit that has the ability Freezing Blast. Freezing Blast is an ability on cooldown that does 14 damage. I believe you only, I don't remember how many action point it costs, but I believe it's actually only one. So it's a squishy unit that can go for one. Freezing Blast has a 90% chance of freeze people and deal 14 damage. If you compare that to Ice Coffin, that's actually straight up just 4 more damage, and as strong as Ice Coffin. So this is another reason why I believe Ice Coffin will actually be fall off really quick. It goes for one in terms of action economy against tankier and stronger units. So basically, you are having this squishy unit, but they can disable an enemy, perhaps like even a tier 3 unit, and yeah, they can freeze them. So you're trading your tier 2's actions for a tier 3's action, and Frozen has some other implications, right? They can't retaliate anymore. Even if you miss, they're still slow, so they have one less retaliation, which in the early game basically means they don't retaliate. So your ability unit can charge in and just kill them. They are your racial unit, so they benefit from all your racial trait. They also benefit from your racial transformation, and they have a mount. Mounts, well, obviously they're good because it allows you to move better in actual combat. And it also allows you to move faster on the overworld. So these units are actually pretty amazing. They also synergize very well with things like Frostblade, yada yada yada. With things like Blizzard. So these are good units. Like for a tier 2 draft battle mage units, these are about as good as you get. Then you have the summon unit. Summon units are units that you summon on the map. You can either do it on your city tile, on your hero tile, or one tile next to them. So what you can do is that you can move your hero, spend all their movement point, and then summon a unit directly next to them. The unit will start with full movement. I'll have to mention that these summon units are overworld summons. There will be spells where it's in battle summons. Those are significantly worse in my opinion. Although they can still be good depending on what you do. So these are the summon unit. Well, technically you only get one, but you actually get two. I'll explain why. So this is a lesser Soul Spirit. It is a tier 1 unit, because they're summon units. Summon units actually also has requirements similar to Town Hall, but it won't be relevant here. So Lesser Slow Spirit is a tier 1 unit. You always get to summon them, well, after you research the corresponding research. They're 55 HP, 1 defense, 1 resistance, 40 movement, which actually is slightly actually, because they're skirmisher units, that's actually normal. They do, I believe, have floating, which basically means they ignore terrain cost, except for mountains on the overmap, and they just ignore terrain cost at all in actual combat. They are elemental unit. Elemental has a bunch of things going, mostly that they have a bunch of immunity to some status. They're evolvable unit. They basically evolve into the slow spirit. and there are skirmisher unit. Skirmisher unit has effect slippery, which means they will never trigger opportunity attack, and they have swift, which means I believe it's just they move faster. So they have two attacks. Melee strike is 12 damage attacks that you can do up to 3 times depending on your action point in combat. These are good. 12 damage is kind of what you are expecting from a tier 1 unit per hit. So yeah, these are good. And then there are freezing blast, which is a range attack that has a 30% chance, I believe, to inflict slowed and not frozen, which will be kind of important. So these are evolvable summons that you don't mind losing because you can spam a lot of them as long as your mana economy is like supporting it. But they can also be played around with timing rush. So basically, when your unit gain enough XP to level up, they get bonuses. So the first two tiers I believe is 10 HP. The third tier is 10 HP and one defense, one resistance. The fourth is um you basically get a bunch of defensive stats, and on top of that, you sometimes get damage boosts and other stuff going on. But once you get to tier, not tier, once you level 6 on these guys, these guys will evolve into the slow spirit. When you evolve into the slow spirit, your stat, because when you level up, your stat is actually gonna increase. Your stat will actually be slightly worse than the lesser slow spirit. At least I believe that's how it works. So when you get slow spirit, don't think it's a stronger unit than lesser slow spirit and just stop farming EXP as soon as you evolve them. Don't keep getting SP on them because they're actually gonna be slightly weaker than your They're not actually weaker, but they're gonna be weaker. So Soul Spirit are basically the same as the Lesser Soul Spirit. There are a few differences. First of all, they do more damage. They actually has a higher baseline. Now a level 1 Soul Spirit is not going to be as good as a full level Lesser Soul Spirit in terms of defensive stat, but they're going to be good. They gain 3 status resistance. Status resistance is important, just know that. So they do a lot more damage, and they gain another ability in Freezing Phase, which is a teleport ability that also has a chance of inflicting a 30% chance of inflicting freeze against all enemy around the unit at the point you're teleporting to. So it's we talk about action economy, and this is one action economy. You don't even end your turn with this. It's one action point. It's one action point versus potential multiple units losing their turn, which is just pretty amazing. And freezing burst got an upgrade. It now actually has a chance of freeze. I believe it's like 90% chance of freeze. So yeah, it just all of a sudden has a way higher chance of way better single target control. I may have got some of this information wrong. Something is wrong. I will edit it after I do the video in description or in comments. And then finally, I believe this is finally, yeah, this is finally, Tome of Cryomancy give you an improvement. Improvement, cost production, and Ghostbender. Improvement are the same as they're kind of same as they are in Civ, but they're not. Improvements are things that you can put down on your map on the tile, but it's a cost production to build, which is how they differentiate from Civ improvements. So, Tome of Cryomancy gave you the School of Cryomancy. They provide you plus 10 knowledge, plus 3 mana per adjacent slow or ice province, and counts as a research post. So knowledge and mana are resources that are, and honestly, in my opinion, should be constantly spent on. They're capstone resources alongside with gold, that you should always just have infinite amount of it. So in that sense, this is arguably one of the strongest tier 1 improvement, even with no solo or ice. There is an inarguable strongest tier 1 improvement that I will get to in another tome, but yeah. So these are very easily placed research posts, which are generally just gonna be good. You may look at the adjacent slower ice province and try to go like, oh, I need to go giga greedy with it, but no, like even if you just slap it down, it's 10 research. 10 research for some production and gold is not a bad thing at all. In fact, it's quite good. Knowledge generating SPI is stronger than building, so the reason why this is that I believe lower level SPI just typically cost less. they also don't. As soon as you choose a tome, you unlock the corresponding improvements immediately, always, 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 and never have to research for it. So research SPI is just good because they also don't have to. You don't have to like spend 600 knowledge to get something that give you 20 knowledge per turn. So you have to spend like 30 turns to like pay back for its own knowledge cost, right? If that makes sense. So this is a net gain of 10 knowledge always, always, always as soon as you pick Cryomancy, which you can do immediately. Now you do the now for you to put down any special improvement SPI, you always need a tier 2 town hall. So this is gonna be unlocked a little bit later, but like it's fine. It's not actually that big of a deal. This is good. This is a very good way to spend your production and your gold. So you can also like manipulate the game to give you a lot of mana with this, to generate a lot of mana with this, which is obviously good. But like don't try to force it. Like don't like settle in slow when you're not really a slow oriented build, I guess. So yeah. So why is Cryomancy the best? As I have spent a long time explaining, it basically provides anything a player needs in the early game with good synergies, both internally within the tome itself, between the freeze and the status resist threat. And with other tomes, there are synergies with some other tomes that you unlock later on down the line. So it's basically never bad. Efficiently spend your resource. In the earlier slides, I keep mentioning resources that each of these things that Tome of Cryomancy gives you. Um, and how you can spend them with resources. So it actually covers all of draft, production, mana, gold, and casting points. So you can spend your resources very efficiently by kind of rotating them. So in Age of Wonder 4, your resources are limited, obviously. But what you can do is that, let's say this turn you have a lot of mana, but you don't have enough gold. So what you can do is summon a unit, and then you can kind of prepare for next turn and spend your gold and production to build a building. And then you have you basically and then you may have enough gold, more gold now, that you can also draft some units. So you're doing multiple actions. You're efficiently spending your resources better than your opponent, which means you're building up your cities better. You're simultaneously having better units, and also simultaneous having better more units. So yeah, you want to be efficient in how you spend resources and how you generate resources in Age of Wonder 4. You don't want to build random stuff that doesn't matter. So Tome of Cryomancy does everything. It does everything good. They're quite good. They do everything quickly. You don't actually pay a lot for them. And you can kind of smartly pick things you need at the moment in the tome itself. In different orders. Build order does not exist in Age of Wonder 4. They really don't. There are general concepts it applies, but there's no definitive like answer. Like, oh, you build one scout, two warrior, or something. That's nonsense. They does everything very efficiently. So again, efficiently is basically you pay very little to actually get the reward, and they do everything good for a good while. Like the slow spirit actually kind of scales well because they're evolvable unit. Blizzard basically is good entire game. Uh, uh, Winter Ridge are good tier 2 for quite a long while. You basically can bring them into some tier 3 battles. There's not a single dead research in this tome. But do be aware of when to pick which. So like if you're having a lot of starting melee unit, probably don't pick up Frost Arrow. If you are having mana issue, probably don't pick like the enchantment that enchant a bunch of units. That doesn't really help you with combat. But yeah. One thing I forgot to mention, well, I didn't forgot, but I failed to mention because I honestly don't think it's actually that big of huge of it's not that huge of a deal. Tome of Cryomancy, as soon as you pick it, you also get 2 Shadow Affinity. Affinity is a bit less important. It's actually quite a bit less important because typically only a few Empire development actually matters in each tree. So there's 6 Empire development tree based on affinity, and then there's the generic one. Spoiler alert: the generic one is actually when you should be spending your Imperium on. But Shadow Affinity development is in generally decent to good. I would say Materium and Astral just straight up as the best development tree because it allows you to do extremely disgusting timing rush and also improves your economy and research quite well. But Shadow generally research sorry, not research, generate knowledge directly, which is like good, but then you realize in the grand scheme of things, it's actually not that much knowledge. It kind of also enables some timing rush because again you got to unlock key text faster, but it's a bit less applicable than Astral and Materium. So Cryomancy is actually strong as both first or second pick tier 1 tome. Although first pick is where it's the strongest, you can make an argument, you can pick it second. However, there is a tome that is so game warping right now as a second pick tier 1 tome that Cryomancy kind of falls off a little bit. But yeah. Uh, so, in conclusion, Tome of Cryomancy is extremely solid and quite possibly the best tier 1 or first pick tome. In my opinion, it is. You can argue it's not. However, I would still think this is one of the best tome of all time. It contextualizes the tier 1 tome very well because it provides everything you want from a tier 1. Except maybe one thing, I'll get to it in another video. But generally speaking, if you're a new player, Tome of Cryomancy is a good way to start at playing the game and also looking at the game. This is a rare tome again of a rare occasion of a tome that actually has no loot trap. You basically pick up this tome and you cannot really make a big mistake that injure yourself out of the game with it. There's no way. It's actually just that easy to autopilot with this tome. Don't think that's a bad thing. There are a million ways you can optimize in Age of Wonder 4. You should not feel bad for optimize one thing or another because I promise you, there's always something you can optimize like more in your game. So don't think, oh, I'm playing meta, or oh, I'm being sweaty and optimizing. No, you're not. You are, but you're not. Trust me, there's always something. There's always a bigger fish. There's always something you can optimize for. Understanding Tome of Cryomancy helps understanding fundamentals of the game as well. I kind of talk about like when you want to think, what you want to be thinking about your resource management, what you want to be thinking about your action economy, what you want to think about your time. Literally turn-based strategy game, man. You need to think things in terms of turns. If you have like if you build a building that give you 5 production, but it costs like it costs 70 and it takes you 4 turns to build, then you're not gonna get, it's not even gonna be paying back for itself for 18 turns. Now obviously there are kind of reasons why you would build it, but think about it, right? It's a dead building for 18 turns, and then at turn 19 you get value. You actually start to generate value from it from a pure mathematical perspective. So think about turns. Think about your investment versus your return. So yeah, Tome of Cryomancy, helpful for learning game for all levels of play. I actually started the game kind of playing Cryomancy. It's very easy to find it. Then now I'm getting a little bit better. I still play Cryomancy occasionally because it's just good to reaffirm my understanding of the game. And once you get better, once you get to the top tier, Cryomancy is good because top Cryomancy is good. So if you want to do Giga Sweaty, Giga Fun builds, then go ahead. Cryomancy is good. So yeah, Diagnosis, it is at the very least really, really good. Is it the best? You can argue about it, but it's just very good. Anyways, thank you for watching this video. I hope you learned something. I hope I made information clear. If you disagree with me, you're wrong. Just kidding. If you disagree with me, you can make your you can make your argument in the comment. I think as long as we're being civil about it, I don't care. I don't mind. Better wording. I don't mind if I'm wrong. Please tell me if I'm wrong. Please tell me I'm not. I'm spreading information, spreading misinformation. So, we all learn here. So, I think it's important to share, and I think it's important to not be afraid that you can be wrong. So, which is why I make this video, right? Anyways, that's it. That's the video. I don't know how to do outros. Okay, I kind of already did the outro, so I'm gonna awkwardly cut the video.